So your wide angle lens is letting you down and your shots aren't just cutting it. But don't ditch it yet, because here are 5 killer tips that are going to help you get the most out of this lens. And the last one is pure magic. I should have brought my sunglasses. One of the best and worst things about using a wide angle lens is it does exactly what it says on the tin, and that is it takes in a very wide field of view. Now that can be great in some instances, but what you might be doing is pointing your camera in the general direction of something that looks great. You open the thing wide up, hit the shutter button, and when you look at it when you get back home, you don't actually know what you took a photograph of. Yes, it's a nice scene, but there's no subject there. And the people looking at your photographs will feel that too, that their eye will dart about the shot and they won't know what it was you intended to take a photograph of. But don't worry, we're going to deal with that. The next thing that might be causing your photographs to look less than stellar is the fact that you've got too much dead space in your image. And what I mean by that is there has to be a link from your foreground to your midground to your background, and you want to try and create as much interest as possible in the photograph. If you end up with too much dead space, again the viewer's confused by what you're intending them to look at. Another thing to be careful of is the distortion on a wide angle lens. It pulls and contorts the image, especially around the edges of the frame, and something that looked normal to your eye, like a stream or a river, all of a sudden gets stretched out and creates that dead space in the middle of your image. So be very deliberate in your composition and take that into account. So on to problem number 3, and that's that you're probably not getting close enough to your subject. And when I say get close, I mean get really close. Now, wildlife is tricky with a wide angle lens, but it's not impossible as long as you've got a subject that's quite amenable to you being in its vicinity. So if you think you're going to get a portfolio shot by taking your wide angle lens, pointing it over this fence, trying to capture the sheep and their new lambs, I can tell you, it's not going to cut it. It's just going to look like a tiny thing in the middle of a huge, massive frame, and we've covered that already. So on to problem number 4, and it's a continuation of something we've already spoken about, and that's edge distortion. A wide angle lens at 14 and 15 millimeters makes a significant change to how the human eye sees things. So when you're finished with your photograph, make sure you scan around the edges, because if you had something important in that area, I guarantee you it might not look normal. So double check that. So on to the last issue, problem number 5, and that's that you're probably shooting everything at eye level. The thing with a wide angle lens is you really need to get creative. Get down super low, get really high, and start tilting the lens forward and back, because that lens distortion that I keep going on about will do magical things to your photograph. So now that we know what the problems are, let's start looking at the solutions. If you're enjoying the video, guys, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'm over the moon to say that I finally passed that 1,000 subscriber mark a couple of days ago. So thank you to everybody that's followed me over the last 2 years. It's been quite a struggle. I haven't been as consistent as I would like to, but I promise you from here on in, there's going to be videos every week. Okay, so on to the first tip. And that's not to just treat your wide angle lens for something you use in wide open spaces. Get creative, get in places tight. Forests are amazing places to use your wide angle, and as I'm going to talk about next, we're going to get up close to those subjects. So on to tip number 2, and that's to use strong leading lines in your photographs. Now I've got a couple of examples here that are maybe not the most picturesque shots that I've ever taken, but they really do highlight what a leading line is. So just over my shoulder here, you can see this line of boulders pointing out into the loch, and it's quite fortunate in that if you continue your eye on that journey, you'll end up at one of the islands out in the middle. So let's see if we can get that shot. While I'm out here, it's worthwhile covering tip number 3, and that's to experiment with angles. Now the majority of us, when we hold our camera, we hold it like that, nice and level, get a level horizon. But the thing with a wide angle lens is you need to get a little bit more creative in how you use it. When I'm trying to take this shot here just now, I'm not just holding it horizontal, I'm starting to tilt the lens down, and I'm going to use the distortion of that lens to stretch it all the way out into the middle of the frame, and then focus your eye on the island. So don't just hold it like that. Look up, look down, and even get into portrait mode, because the lens distortion when you hold the camera this way is staggering. So tip number 4 leads on from that, and that what we're going to try and do is put something in the foreground, something in the midground, and something in the background. Again, it tells a story and leads the eye the whole way through the image, rather than just having big empty spaces in your photographs that are quite boring to look at. So in this image here, you can see I've got the leading lines of the rocks. They're taking your eyes all the way up to the fisherman in the boat, and then beyond that, it's framed by the island in the background. If I was critical, I should have raised myself up slightly just to create a little bit of space between the top of the fisherman and the island, but it's only for example purposes only. I'll put some more photographs up, some from today and some from before, but they really give you a good idea of what I'm talking about. But with that said, we're going to move on to the final tip, and as I promised you, this is the one where the magic happens, and we have already mentioned it. A wide angle lens is just one of the best things that you can put in your bag. It takes a bit of time to get used to using it, but as you can see, once you do, the shots you get are nothing short of stunning. In this shot, for example, you can see the castle and the tree seem to lean towards the middle of the frame, and the sky is stretched as if it's almost a time-lapse image. Again here, the foreground seems far away from the camera, but I can tell you, my toe was almost in the bottom of that shot. And sometimes putting a small thing in the middle of the frame just exaggerates the scale of the whole scene. And this happens to be one of my favourite photographs of all time. Whilst the boulders look quite imposing, they were actually quite small on the beach. I'll leave you with another couple of photographs, but I'm hoping you're starting to see that a wide angle lens is something you should never take out of your bag. So the fifth and final tip, the magic one, is distortion. I know I've mentioned it multiple times throughout this video, and that's for good reason, because one of the best benefits about having a truly wide angle lens is the way that it distorts your photographs. Now, distortion has a connotation of being a negative word, but you really can use that to your advantage, and you can bring things out in your shot that you wouldn't otherwise see. I use it when I'm in Glencoe to try and make the peaks of the mountains a little bit taller, and also to make the foreground a little bit more imposing. So experiment with it, do not be scared, and make distortion your friend. So has the video managed to convince you? Perhaps not, and if not, you might be thinking about a 20-40-70, and if you are, then I'd watch this video here. This is where I explain all about that lens. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.